Fire your ghostwriter. Unfortunately, most ghostwriters today are not actually ghostwriters, but merely transcribers. The perception today is that as long as you can interview a client, transcribe that text, and crop it into social media posts, you're a good ghostwriter. That is not true. The important part of following a client's tone and voice and creating something that aligns with who they are, what they do, how they think, that part is being missed out. A few years ago, I came across a ghostwriter on Twitter named Joshua Lysak, and he has this knack for quote posting some of the most viral pieces of content with just 3 words: fire your ghostwriter. Hi, I'm Shreya. I run a LinkedIn ghostwriting agency, and even as a ghostwriter myself, I agree with his sentiment. Unfortunately, most ghostwriters today are not actually ghostwriters, but merely transcribers. So, what they do is they just take all the information that's received, convert that into a transcript, edit it somehow, and that's content. Unfortunately, that's not what ghostwriting actually means. So, what is ghostwriting if not transcribing? Why are most ghostwriters calling themselves that if they are actually just transcribers? How can you make sure that you are one of those ghostwriters that never has to hear the words fire your ghostwriter about themselves? And how do you make sure that AI slop, which is now replacing ghostwriting slop, doesn't replace you as a ghostwriter? Or that another ghostwriter doesn't replace you either? So let's begin. Now, first things first, what does ghostwriting actually mean? Ghostwriting means to create content for someone in their own voice, in their own tone, in their own perspective, and to not take credit for that work. So I think that a lot of people have understood the second part of ghostwriting where you're not getting credit for it. But the first part, the important part of following a client's tone and voice and creating something that aligns with who they are, what they do, how they think, that part is being missed out. And I think the reason for that is today a lot of people just haven't looked into what ghostwriting actually is. Most people who call themselves ghostwriters are some form of social media content creators. There's some form of a social media marketer, some form of content writers, copywriters. But because ghostwriting has become such a buzzword and people are paying thousands of dollars a month for this service, people have started adopting the word ghostwriter for themselves. So now that we've understood what a ghostwriter actually does and why it's become such a fad, why it's become the choice of word for most people who aren't even ghostwriters, let's understand what makes a ghostwriter good. Now, the perception today is that as long as you can interview a client, transcribe that text, and crop it into social media posts, you're a good ghostwriter. That is not true. Unfortunately, yes, the level or the barrier to entry into ghostwriting is that low, but the approach to ghostwriting is not the best. So, let me give you 3 steps on how to improve your ghostwriting. These are not simple steps, but these are highly effective. These are main steps you are already taking right now in your ghostwriting process. And if you make these 3 changes, it will drastically improve the output that you're getting. So first, let's just look into what is the usual flow of a ghostwriter. A typical ghostwriter would interview their client, convert that interview into a transcript, then look into the transcript and try to find, especially for social media that we're talking about, they would try to find what are all the relevant topics to create social media content on. And then they would probably these days run it through some sort of an AI tool, maybe Claude, maybe ChatGPT, and just run that transcript to extract some sort of first drafts from AI for each of these topics. And then finally make some edit and it's good to go and to be published on a client's page. Now we want to change this process. We want a similar outline, but we want more emphasis on the quality of the process. So step 1, the interview. Instead of trying to run through the list of questions that you have and just receiving answers, keep running through the list, what you want to become is the best interviewer possible. You want to become the person who is paying close attention and is able to pull on threads from the client's conversation and ask more questions about it. You want to become the kind of person who is able to come up with questions on the spot based on the level of detail you require. You're essentially able to strategize all of their content and run through all their ideas while you're interviewing them, which allows you to foresee the information you're going to require to create this content and hence ask better questions while you're in that interview in that very minute. So you can continue having your checklist of questions to go through, but make sure you're not attached to it. Make sure that you're an active listener and you're able to pull on threads based on where the conversation is being led. Step 2, understand your client by reading between the lines. Now, one aspect of this whole interviewing process is, of course, to listen to what is being said and take that information. But the other aspect you want to understand is the thing that you can only grasp by being present in the conversation. And that is how this person thinks. How do they think? How do they ideate when they are sharing a story with you? What topics excite them? How excited they are about certain things and how quiet they are about other things. How much in detail do they get into for certain topics, and for other things it's just surface level. How do they think? Do they think in metaphors and then share that with you? Do they think in linear stories? Do they often go on tangents and then it takes just a lot of time to bring them back on track? How do they think? This is such an important aspect of understanding who that client is, what their personality is like, and it will shape a lot of the content that you create for them. And finally, step 3, start drafting all of your content by yourself. Stop using AI. What's happening right now is, again, a lot of people are using AI to get the first draft and then they are stepping in as the role of the editor. I think all these things are fine if your core job is not to create content, not to ghostwrite for someone. But if this is your entire job, if writing is your job, you should embrace the process of writing. You should embrace the process of ghostwriting, of thinking creatively, of ideating, of taking your narrative based on the client's perspective. You have to become really good at that and try to not skip that process. So instead of using AI to draft the content, what I do is on the screen, I would open up all of my notes, the transcription on one side, and then have my other document, my done document open on the other side. I would refer to the notes to create the content. And yes, of course, sometimes you want to use the punchiest lines verbatim from the client to create your content as well. Include them in your content. But you don't want to use AI to draft a post for you. You want to do all the drafting yourself by looking at the transcript side by side. This allows you to become a better writer. Your job is not to edit something that is really poor quality writing. Your job is to ideate, understand the process, to understand the voice, and then to exhibit that in the most descriptive or exciting manner possible. Now, when you stop using AI, you'll realize that your first drafts are coming out really unique for each client as well. And also, it reflects the level of enthusiasm you saw from them on that particular call. So, you're able to create not only much better quality content, but you're able to create much better ghost-written content. Now, this is proper ghostwriting. And I'm saying this because I have reviewed thousands of posts in the last few years. I've run a LinkedIn ghostwriting agency. I've hired plenty and I've reviewed so many sample posts by so many candidates. And at one point, it feels like all of these posts were written by the same ghostwriter for the same client, which is obviously not true. But that is sadly the situation right now. So if you follow these 3 steps, you will be able to stand out from all of these thousands of ghostwriters available right now on the market. And you will be able to not only get better results for your clients, but also actually enjoy the process of ghostwriting and enjoy your profession as a ghostwriter. Ghostwriting is so creative, it's so fun, it's not as mechanical as people have made it out to be right now. So make sure you follow these 3 steps to get started and comment any questions you may have below. Thank you.